This week, it's the turn of the Hydra. The remaining 800 or so points of Alpha Legion are on the painting table. Let's get them ready for a scrap, shall we? Welcome to Hobby with Ollie. My name is Ollie.
My name's Meg.
Why are you laughing already? With the Heresy well and truly underway, it's time to paint up the second army that we're making from this box, the Alpha Legion.
I am in the zone.
In the zone. This gives me an opportunity to paint up an entirely new army with a brand new paint scheme. I'm sure this will go perfectly well first time out. Before that, however, there are still a couple of models left to be built after last week's exertions, the Contempted Dreadnought and the Praetor with a power axe. Up first, the task of building the Praetor was down to the great general who'll be leading her beloved snaky boys, the Queen of Blue-Green, Meg, aka alpharius. How was this guy to put together, Megs?
Yeah, so overall I love the model, but I found it difficult to put the cape together as the instructions weren't always the clearest for where all the pieces needed to go. But I'm super excited to see how it is when it's all painted up.
With the Praetor all built, Meg had some other business to attend to.
Bye! I'm off to infiltrate the ranks of global governments to destabilise the economy to make way for the rule of the Hydra.
What?
Oh, I'm just going shopping.
Oh, cool. See you later. So it fell to me to build the Contemptor Dreadnought. With the last bits glued into place, the 20th Legion were ready for their paint job. As this was going to be a brand new scheme, I did decide to do a couple of test models just to make sure I could get everything the way I wanted, and I'm really glad I did because it turned out not to be smooth sailing. I wanted to try a technique of layering contrast paint over metallics in order to give that sort of shifting blue-green metallic appearance for the armour. Attempt number one turned out too dark on the metals, and the contrast paint was applied too thickly. The second son of alpharius fared a little better, with the main issue being overzealous application of the blue colour. I put this down to poor adaptation of his oolitic kidney, so I took him and his brother back to the apothecary of the chapter in order to get their gene seed replanted. Fortunately, I didn't have to go too far, as this was located in my bathroom sink, where I used the sacred Antiqua Peniculus Dentarius, or old toothbrush for those of you who don't speak High Gothic, to scrub off the last layers of paint. By the third legionary, I was happy with my method for getting the armour on these guys. An all-over spray of black metal from Vallejo. I was happy because I've managed to finish my Iron Hands army. Okay, I forgot, we're not doing Iron Hands. This was then followed with a spray of a lighter metal, Vallejo gunmetal, and then later lead belcher as I ran out of the previous paint. This doesn't matter too much as the effect is subtle, but this was my main base coat. I only wanted the black metal to be remaining in the deepest recesses in case I missed any areas. Once I was done spraying the lighter silver over, the Iron Warriors were ready for battle. Next, I highlighted using Vallejo Steel, following a similar method to what I did on the Blood Angels, focusing this on the panels from the top downwards, and never spraying deeply into the recesses. With this done, I took the first attempt at the blue colour I was going to use for my armour. I used a mix of Pterodon Turquoise contrast paint, mixed with Guilliman Blue glaze paint, and airbrush thinner to get it to the right consistency. Now, as you're about to see, there are better methods of getting the Alpha Legion armour colour right. The issue is with the makeup of the contrast paint. It doesn't flow in a way that I'm used to, and tends to create ugly pools and splotches, regardless of whether it's applied with an airbrush or with a brush. One of the advantages of using the airbrush here was that if I got in there quickly enough, I could use a cloth to wipe off areas that I wasn't happy with and redo it. I also found that turning the air pressure way down on my compressor helped to create a really thin mist that helped apply an even layer all over the models, avoiding pooling. However, this method just completely failed to work on the Contemptor at all. Due to the large flat panels and the way the airbrush was blowing air and paint at the same time, it wasn't going to be possible to avoid pooling using this method. I did think about using a brush to apply the colour, but again, I was getting big pools on the large flat panels. I was running out of paints, but I used the last of my Guilliman Blue, which I've now learned is out of production, so I won't be able to get any more, and I mixed it with a little bit of Bieltan Green just to give that sort of greenish blue hue. This seemed to work for the body of the Contemptor, and because it was using regular shade and glaze paints, which I was happy using through the airbrush, I managed to control it a lot better and get the colour evenly across the model. So once I'd sprayed all of the models down with this lovely blue-green colour, I had a look at them and took a pause to go grab myself some dinner. When I came back, and I looked at them and looked at the rulebook, I realised I hadn't painted Alpha Legion at all. I'd painted Sons of Horus. So I thought I might have to go back to the drawing board, but then I struck upon a brilliant idea. While I was out of Guilliman blue glaze paint, what I did have was an Arctic blue metallic paint from the Vallejo Metallics range that I had purchased previously. I thinned this down with a lot of airbrush thinner and then used this blue filter over all of the armour, and this really helped to sell it as Alpha Legion. And with that, I'm actually done with the armour on the Alpha Legion. Let's take a look at painting the Praetor. The first thing I'm going to do, which I'll do on all the other Marines as well, is to focus on the trim. This was going to be silver. This is going to give them a really cold, aloof feeling, which I think is just perfect for the 20th Legion, masters of sabotage, infiltration, and deception. I went over all of the metal details using Vallejo black metal colour, which I then highlighted up using gunmetal. Similar to what I'd done in the priming stage, I used this to act as a base coat, leaving the black metal only in the deepest recesses. I then highlighted up using Vallejo Steel, keeping this to the upward facing panels and also the sharp edges of the armour. With this, there were only a few details left on the model. These included a layer of gold over the skulls on the little banner pole, painting silver into the eyes, and then also painting the little gems, for which I used a mix of purple ink, a little bit of white ink, and then ard coat over the top to sell the sort of gem effect. For the eyes, I filled them in with Evil Sun Scarlet washed down to a wash consistency, but in the end I came back in with Signal Red metallic paint, which I think gives a really cool kind of vibrant red colour while not losing any of the metallic shine of the armour. I'm going to be covering how I handled the black details when I look at the Terminators a bit later on, but I did paint in the trim of the cloak using gold. And with that, the Praetor is all good to go. For the Contemptor, I just needed to block out a few of the details using my metal, using the same method as I did for the Praetor. As the Contemptor has some quite large armour panels, what I also did was use a black line around those armour panels. This just helps to give some definition and a bit of visual interest to some otherwise flat and boring areas. Again, for the Contemptor, I started out with Evil Sun Scarlet in the eyes, but again changed to Signal Red as I just really think that it sells the effect that it's bouncing off of the gleaming metallic armour. For the Terminators, I used black as an accent colour to put onto all their tassels and the kind of tabard that they have between their legs. I highlighted up the black using a warm colour scheme. This was because most of the rest of the models were very cold colours, those blues and greens, so I wanted something that really contrasted that. I mixed 50-50 of black and Wraithbone, and then used this to highlight the edges of the tassels. The only other difference with the Terminators was that at the behest of the Lady of Serpents, one of them was equipped with a heavy flamer, and I wanted to add a bit of wear and tear to really show that this had been used for purging heretics pre-heresy. How would that work? How would there be heretics pre-heresy? Used to purge Xenos pre-heresy. The troops were painted up in much the same way as what I showed with the Blood Angels last time, just making sure to avoid the armour panels as I really didn't have a way to get the colour back. That just left the basing, and I've decided to base them and the Blood Angels using the same scheme so that they can really tie in and look like they're on the same planet, fighting maybe in the early days of the heresy. And so the only thing left is to paint the rims of the bases black, and the Alpha Legion are ready to do battle with subterfuge and espionage on the battlefields of the Horus Heresy. Thank you so much for watching this episode. It's been a real pleasure to paint up the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness box. Let me know what you thought of my efforts in the comments down below. If you have been enjoying this Horus Heresy series, be sure to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your friends as well. With the whole box painted up, in next week's episode we're going to be starting playing the Horus Heresy and pitting the Blood Angels against the Alpha Legion in a battle to the death. I also just wanted to thank everybody who subscribed to the channel. In between the last video and this one, we have hit 250 subscribers, so thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to make these videos, and I hope that you keep enjoying them. In the meantime, my name has been Ollie, this has been my hobby, and I'll see you next time.